Hello, and you're very welcome along to another edition of the JMAC podcast. I'm John McMahon, and of course, the podcast is kindly brought to you by orgaretcher.com. Use my promo code JMAC podcast to get 15% off on the website. And tonight, I'm joined by former Antrim and St. Gall's footballer and current Fermanagh ladies manager CJ McGurdy to run the rule on all the championship action that took place over the weekend, and of course, this weekend's championship action. So, really look forward to chatting to CJ tonight. It's been a while, CJ. How are you keeping?
Yeah, good, John. It's been a while, all right. Good to be back on. Good that the championship season starting to come about. We've had what 2 weekends of it now. Yesterday was probably the real start of it. With games in a couple of provinces. So, yeah, it's good to have the championship back.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I tell you what, I seen you on another podcast the other day, and I just said to myself, I must give that man a shout.
Must have done some talking rubbish on it then.
And how's all? I suppose obviously Antrim. We'll touch on to the Antrim game now in a couple of minutes, CJ, and obviously no luck on Saturday, but to put in a massive effort. But did you have a good weekend?
Yeah, good weekend. With the Man ladies were beaten in League 10 yesterday by Antrim, so a wee bit disappointing, but again, it's only the league. We gained promotion out of that league, which is the main objective. So we've thrown in a couple of weeks' time, which will be a sort of uphill task. After winning junior last year, we're up the intermediate. So, we have a good enough team there to give it a right rattle. So looking forward to that starting as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I enjoying the coaching. Obviously, you had great success with the Fermanagh ladies there last year, and obviously looking forward to this year as well. But are you enjoying it all?
They're a great bunch of girls to work with. Great backroom staff there that make life easy for me to just go in and coach. And it's very, very enjoyable now, to be quite honest with you. And I suppose the players and the backroom team make that as well, and with a great bond and great rapport with the players, which is it's a great environment to go into every Wednesday and Friday night. So really, really enjoying it.
Yeah, and obviously playing. I presume you're finished playing at this stage, are you?
Too old, too sore.
It catches up on us all.
Yeah, soccer match on Saturday, and what you don't
You're
come.
still sore.
Yeah, you don't come around till about Thursday afternoon.
Yeah, you couldn't think
So,
of it. And you finish up,
catches up on you, surely.
and you're doing a bit for Ardbo, was it? Tyrone.
Yeah, fair a wee bit for our bow there for a year or two. And,
Yeah.
obviously, but just look, when you're, be 37 next month, and when you sort of played for, we've got to 15 or 16 years, sort of every Wednesday and Sunday, hurling football with the clubs and goals. Very, very difficult, to keep it going, just making injuries catch up on you. So, you know, just at this stage, it's probably a task putting on your shoes every morning. So at that stage, it's time to pack it in and start the coaching.
Yeah. No, I seen a few pictures, obviously, of the Tyrone Club Championship. I think it was it last year or the year before when you were playing for Ardbo, and it looked hasty.
Oh, it's from club football competitive now, definitely. A lot of good teams in it, in fairness. And it's very, very competitive each week, no matter if you're bottom of the league or top of the league. I think last year, just observing from a couple of matches that I've got watching Arbo, and they were probably unlucky and get beat by a couple of points, and they were in relegation trouble, and then they got a couple of wins, and they were suddenly shooting up the table a wee bit. There's very little between sort of sixth in the league and sort of 12th in the league, and one or two wins in a row can promote you from maybe 13th place up to fourth. That's just the way the Pro League is. So very, very competitive, yeah.
Yeah. And how did you obviously find, and obviously myself, yourself, and your brother Cavan done the St. Gall's podcast back in the middle of lockdown. Did you find it kind of hard transferring away from St. Gall's?
Yeah, look, it was difficult transferring away. Don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, I live in Arbon now. I had a young child at the time, which yourself probably changed his life dramatically. And you know, I've got a supporting partner and a wife in Clare that was wanting me to go down the road and continue playing, but also very hard on people when they're having to put them to bed every night, and having to feed them, when there's only one, two. So I did it for a year or two, and then sort of, you know, just just transferred to Arbo just for that sort of last year or two, just to play a wee bit of football and enjoy it, because look, the travelling catches up on you too. I
Yeah.
know it's only an hour down the road, but again, when you were playing football and hurling, it was maybe 3 nights a week from down the road, and at the weekend, like that's an awful lot of travelling. And it can get to you, to be honest with you. So look, it was a big decision. I suppose a lot of my mates had finished playing for St. Galls at that stage. St. Galls were probably looking for young blood to come through, and us old boys were maybe trying to hang on too long. So yeah, St. Galls are starting to go well again. They won the under 20 last year, and they seem to have started this year's season well. So it's great to see them coming back, and hopefully there's a championship in them fairly soon.
Mm. And you left obviously on good terms. Like there was no kind of malice. It was just like your I suppose your living situation, your family situation. Like there was no, I suppose, bad blood. No.
Oh, it's a family situation this day, still I haven't been this golf game in a good while now, to be honest with you. But again, that's just living up here and your own stuff on and your family stuff on, and the actual time I did see them was when they were actually over the road in Cavan playing, which is only 20 minutes over the road from me. So I think to maybe one or two away games rather than home games, just because logistically it's easier to get to. But look, always keeping an eye on results, and still in a number of WhatsApp groups where we're always talking about it. And as I say, it's good to see them coming back. Some of the young players that probably would have coached, a number of years back ago with under 8 and under 10 starting to flourish at senior level. So, there's hope. There's hope there, and hopefully, as they St. can provide a championship in the next couple of years.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Get back to what she's done for so many years. It'll be great to see CJ without a shadow of a doubt. I suppose, obviously, CJ, you had skin in the game. We'll touch on to the championship action that took place over the weekend, CJ, in the Ulster Senior Football Championship quarter-final on the 12th of April. It was your own county Antrim against Armagh. It was Antrim 123, Armagh 134 in Carrigan Park. So much talk going into this, CJ. Carrigan Park are nowhere, and this, that, and the other, and headlines, and whatever you're having yourself. And I have to say, I was following the game from afar, and it was a really, really good effort by Antrim. Now, it has to be said, I think they can leave that game with their heads held high. Andy McAtee will be very happy with it. Obviously, not getting the job done. Probably the result was a bit of a foregone conclusion going into it. Probably Armagh kind of a bit of a stretch their legs exercise. But your thoughts after the game?
Yeah, as an Antrim fan, you have to be fairly happy that this performance was actually very, very good. Um,
It's not all bad, CJ. You were very honest with your preview.
Maybe last week I said it was tight for a while. I
Yeah.
was I wasn't expecting Antrim to be in front at half time, which was great
No.
to see. And look, it ended up at 10 or 11 points in it, which was probably the best result Antrim possibly probably could have got, just with the Division 1 against Division 3, Antrim being relegated, having a number of players probably, Rory McCann was only back from injury and probably wasn't fully match fit. I know Armagh were missing a few too, but I think Antrim take a lot of credit over the weekend. They asked a number of questions of Armagh in the first half. Armagh had to lift it a few gears in the second half, and obviously their bench and their superior physique and fitness showed, as well as playing in Division 1. Um, so definitely Antrim take a lot of credit. The thing is, an Antrim supporter for me would be, is that going to be the highlight of the summer, or can they keep up that performance and now go and perform in the Towson Cup? And they made a semi-final last year, so for progress, because there's a lot of young players in that panel as well, can they now get the Towson Cup final? Because there's a lot of hope and expectation there now on Antrim. I suppose after the weekend, there's been a lot of talk of a great performance that we're in front against the All-Ireland champions, but after 35, 37 minutes, still close after 45. Can we now go into the Towson Cup and add and give them young players a chance to play in Croke Park again? The more experience they get at that level, the more matches they play, the more they'll improve as a group, which will only bode them well for next season. I know it's Division 4 again, but no, an awful lot of credit must go to them at the weekend. They played really, really well. For large parts of the game against their, let's be honest, a superior outfit. When Armagh needed to lift the gears, they did lift the gear and sort of get out of safe a small bit. But if I'm really honest, if I thought it was going to be 10 or 11 points before the match, I probably would have took it, because they Armagh as well have the bit between the teeth. They won an Ulster Championship that's the only medal a lot of them boys are missing now, and also the championship. So yeah, in reflection, good game of football. It was high scoring. It was entertaining. And look, there's no doubt that Armagh were a far, far better team and superior team in the second half. But Antrim were a complete match for them in the first half and deservedly went in front. And it was very within the break in front. So a lot of credit to Antrim, definitely.
Yeah, and I think all credit to Antrim really, and I think it was nearly set up for Antrim to put in a big performance. Obviously, like it's a funny sort of mindset. It's a funny nearly sort of psychology, but it was nearly set up for Antrim. Cargo Park tight ground, all the razzmatazz going into the game. It was nearly set up for Antrim to play quite well, probably not win the game, and that's how it transpired. I remember 2022 very well when we played you guys, and obviously the talk going into that game against Cargo Park or nowhere. Antrim played quite well. Cavan got the better of them in the end, but I think a lot of people didn't give credit for what potentially could have happened during the week. And I know a lot of people are writ off and blah, 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 but it was still a very spirited Antrim performance.
Yeah, look, can I say that's the thing about Antrim, and sometimes you don't want to be known as spirited performance or a team that got so close. You play football matches, especially at county level, to win. And there's no doubt that the Antrim players wanted to win that game, obviously. They probably were going in at half time thinking, geez, we're in, we're right shot. And they were. Um, but they probably knew that Armagh were going to try and lift it a couple of years. And look, as I say, it's to me, it's always the National League that they need to improve in, because until you start playing better teams week in, week out, then you're going to have no chance against the Division 1 and Division 2 sort of teams. And that just showed Armagh had 7 games in the league against quality opposition at a high pace. And that's what sort of came about in the second half. They just upped it a few years. But yeah, I think it's time for Antrim to try and get rid of that spirit, sort of hard luck story, I suppose. And that's hard to do when you're down in Division 4, Division 3. But it's a fine balance. I think they do have to take a lot of credit for the weekend, but also we don't want to be here in 6, 7 years, 8 time again saying the exact same thing. Ask for a performance, hard luck.
Yeah.
Way back to Division 3, Division 4, and that's the peak of your season. That's the peak of your summer. And that's why I think the Cavan Cup is so good, because it allows now Antrim to try and build in that positive performance where in the old days you probably were out, or you're going to be a back door and you could have maybe only got one more game. So Antrim have a lot now to go and try and finish out the summer in terms of trying to go deep into the Cavan Cup and even possibly win it. But I think they'll need a performance like they did for 70 minutes. Um, the performance in the first half, they'll need that for 70 minutes even to win the Cavan Cup, because the standard is so high in that as well.
Yeah, I think Westmeath will be severe favourites going into that title cup. It'll be very interesting how it plans out. One question about Antrim, obviously, CJ going into it, they held their own in the first half and done very well, it has to be said. Who was the standard performance for you? And I suppose coming away from that game, what players I think were happy leaving Carrigan Park with the performances on Saturday from your point of view, from an Antrim point of view?
Yeah, look, I think that's the mentality thing as well, where I don't think any player should have been coming out happy, because they were beat at the end of the day. And,
Okay.
often change rooms where people maybe say, oh, 4 5 sub points or made 4 blocks, and I don't care about the result. I'm happy enough for me. And that's where the mentality probably needs to change. But I thought Gavin Keenan, sorry, the cornerback was very good. I know he missed a penalty, but he gets stuck in, he gets tore in, he's pacey, he gets on the ball. He looked right up for it, and he produced a good performance. Obviously, McBride playing on his home sort of patch, kicked a couple of 3 pointers. I alluded to it on another podcast that that's what our man needs to watch out for. And in fairness to Paddy, he stepped up and scored maybe 3 or 4 3 pointers. Again, probably knowing Corrigan, knowing the breeze was around it probably helped him. But again, he sort of stood up in the first half and was kind of just didn't shirk any responsibility. Led the line as sort of a seasoned campaigner, and I was impressed by him. They were the two that probably really stood out for me. There was probably other decent performances, but they were the real two that sort of carried the fight, carried the hit. And in fairness, the Antrim, they get stuck in the first half. It just wasn't, it was tasty, and I think a lot, I've seen a couple of Armagh fans and even talking in the few in school today where, oh, geez, Barry Cassie like is away with this and that. But you come to West Belfast, sometimes you have to leave with blood. And I thought that, Antrim gets stuck in, they played on the borderline of decisions, and that helped them the first half. They weren't laying down to a physical Armagh team, and I thought that was a real interesting, and it was a real credit to see Antrim starting to get stuck into teams and making it difficult for teams, and that nasty little bit that maybe Andy McIntyre brings to them. But
Mm.
I've rarely seen it in Antrim teams over the last number of years.
Mm-hmm.
The last decade, there's that wee bit of nastiness about it, and I think it was early on that there was a ball loose around someone's face, and I think it was Keenan actually got a hand to it, which was legitimate, but someone went off with I think it was Ross McClellan went off with a busted nose. So, all legitimate, but it was a statement that we're here and we're not lying down here. And that's our path. And I think that was a good part of the performance too, that there was actually a bit of fight and a bit of courage and a wee bit of I'm not lying down, yeah, I'm getting stuck in.
Yeah, no, good to see that kind of fighting spirit. And obviously, Andy McIntyre, a lot of people will potentially be saying, and I don't know what his kind of views are and his thoughts, like, will he be Antrim manager next year? Do you feel he's the right man to stay with Antrim? Because obviously, CJ, we see so much managerial stuff, like staying around for years, staying around for 2 years. Like, do you feel this man is the right man to lead the Antrim project forward? Is there a better man out there at the minute? Like, and, because we see so much swapping and changing, like, stability is important in life, but what do you think?
Yeah, look, it's a difficult one. I think there's, probably 3 to 4 years is the max you can have with any group now. In my opinion, Kieran McGee's slightly different with the Armagh players, but 3 to 4 players, and then sort of your message gets a little bit repetitive or boring for the group of players. But look, it goes on a scenario. A chapter McBride here and there, and still firing the odd message, but I wouldn't know an awful lot about the Antrim camp. I say logistically, I haven't been to many club games in Antrim over the past number of years, so I don't know if there's anyone within Antrim to manage Antrim at this current time. I don't know if anyone wants to take on that role. But at the end of the day, Andy McIntyre's there. I've seen enough at the weekend that the players are still fighting for him, still playing for him. Yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll probably go in the Towson Cup and see how far they go. If they beat early in it, we see him walking away because he's been there a couple of years. But if they go deep into the semi-final and final, he's probably thinking, yeah, I'll go back for one more year. But at this stage, I don't see anyone really stepping forward that would be an ideal candidate within Antrim. And again, I could be wrong because I don't know. I wouldn't even know who's managing some club teams in Antrim. Because I'm away from that scene for a number of years now. I don't know who's coaching certain teams in Antrim. So there may be potential out there that someone could come in, but at this moment in time, you have to respect Andy McIntyre. He's done a decent job. Yes, they get relegated to Division 4 this year, but it's a hard task sometimes. You have a limited. I would say Antrim club football isn't brilliant at the minute. There's a big, even looking at the results there over the past couple of weeks, there seems to be a top 4, top 5, and then in Division 1, and then there's some annihilations happening in Division 1, and that can't be good for any county. So, it's very hard when players are, going to league games and they're winning by 20. It's very hard to judge a player whether they're good enough for county. So I think the Antrim club scene needs to improve a little bit. If that does happen, then the Antrim county scene may improve. But for Andy McIntyre, you've got to respect the man. He's in there. He's doing a decent job, in my opinion. They got promoted from Division 4. Okay, stayed there for a year. They're back down. But I seen enough at the weekend to think that the players are still wanting them. Players are still fighting for them. And to walk away from 10 or 11 points with the All-Ireland champions is not a bad result, according to league divisions.
Yeah,
absolutely. Just on here,
oh yeah, no butter. Yeah. No bother at all. I suppose last kind of point on this, CJ, like obviously the talk going into it, Carrick and Park are nowhere, and I suppose this is the annual debate of, no case for Park, and obviously yourself and Cavan would be kind of vocal about no case for Park still. I suppose general thoughts on that, CJ, and obviously the talk about, Carrick and Park are nowhere. Personally, fair play to Antrim for sticking to their guns, having Carrick and Park, and fair play to Armagh for not really objecting much to that either, but I suppose general thoughts on all that situation.
Yeah, look, as I say, I did it on another podcast during the week. I thought Armagh firstly carried themselves brilliantly. There was no other players coming out in the media. They were very smart about it. They just let it play out. I know one or two of the Armagh players had no objections to going to Corrigan Park, but they didn't come out. They didn't say anything. They just focused on the game. In terms of Antrim, they had every right to play at Corrigan. Even though I don't like it myself because it's now St John's ground or local high school. It's never an easy place to go to. But look, it was a right couple, 100%. I'm being honest, Ulster GA were just looking a payday. Obviously, Armagh have a serious support, but Antrim were drawn out first. Very, very simple. Antrim home ground at the minute is Bergen Park. And that's where the game should be played. On Casement, I think it's turned into an awful, it has been for a
sad, isn't it? Sad,
but again, I don't know the ins and outs, but I don't know why it was ever closed. You look at these soccer stadiums in England, it's nearly there till the last day of the season, and then they knock it down the day after. So until the diggers were coming in, Casement should have been open right up till the previous day before the diggers were coming in. And if the Antrim County Board or Ulster GA had kept to that motto, Casement would still be open because the diggers never came in. So I don't know why. I think it was insurance issues. They didn't want to get out the insurance for a year because they thought in 2 months' time the work was starting, but that didn't happen. So it's an awful pity. Just in terms of concert revenue for bars around West Belfast, for the people of West Belfast, but mainly for Antrim to have home games at. Ulster could have also obviously used it for semi-finals, Armagh against Down or stuff like that there. But it's an awful waste just sitting in the middle of West Belfast. But to me, number one, it should never be closed until the diggers were actually coming through the gates. And number two, just over the last 5, 6, 7 years, you can blame political parties and all that sort of stuff too. But I think the GA need to have a look at the way it was handled in the early process of it. And to be honest with you, before stuff started getting dear and in terms of building, the stadium, obviously there was an extra whatever it is now, 50 million, 60 million, whatever it is. This should have been built 10 years ago when it was in the GA's hands to build it and they didn't.
Yeah, I seen a video of it there yesterday. It's a sorry looking sight, CJ. And my God, I think you were part of some of them Antrim teams in the early days with 08, CJ, 09. Cavan had some good scraps due down in Cavan Park a couple of years, and a great atmosphere around the place, good crowds. And I know there's potential talk of having Ulster finals there. Just what could have been, CJ?
Yeah, look, what could have been. I remember playing Throne there in 2011. And obviously a lot of the Throne team that played in the 08 final were still playing, and we were on Throne to 4 points that day. So, in a packed Casement Park, so there are days that were real good, but it's just been a sorry sight over the last 10 years, yeah. And it doesn't help when you're, if you're an Antrim player, with the number of wood driving up down past it every single day, I maybe pass it once every couple of weeks when I'm down seeing the parents, but every time you go past it, it's a sorry sight, I should say.
Yeah. Oh, it doesn't look like there's any resolution. I know there was a bit of a protest and a bit of a peaceful kind of protest on Saturday and a bit of parade and Ocean McCombo was speaking and bits about like that, but I can't see that making much of a difference, and it's going to be a sorry sight until something drastic is done, Mr. McGurty. And then we'll move on to yesterday's action over the weekend, CJ, in the Ulster Senior Football Championship quarterfinal. It was Tyrone against Cavan. It was Tyrone 124, Cavan 20 points in Healy Park. Oh man, of course, CJ, I was at this game and yeah, very disappointed. It's been a tough day at the office today, thinking of the what if, buts, and maybes. Really poor performance by Cavan, and I think Tyrone, as someone said yesterday, we probably made them look better maybe than they were. And It was just very, very disappointing. Dalton McCurry was a joy to watch at times, but I think Cavan can really be very disappointed this week. And I think obviously it's the hope that kills at times. Paddy Lynch doing the warm up before the game, and it looked like he could have been getting a few minutes. And then the talk is he's not even next or near playing at the minute, and I don't even think he'll kick a ball for Cavan. So I know there's a bit of mind games potentially beforehand, but he was not near it. Yes, unfortunately, and I think we're really it's a tough situation without him, to say the very least. But yeah, a tough day, CJ. Did you get to see it?
Yeah, look, I think Paddy Lynch was an awful loss for Cavan. He's some player. He's the sort of go-to player to get scores as well. Obviously a free kicker as well, not in the squad. But look, in reflection as well, you know, on the other hand, Throne were missing Dark Allen, you know, so, both teams were missing key forward, but look, Throne were far superior. And the game was all over by the half time, to be quite honest with you. Cavan, obviously, like they always do, put it up as, a bit like going back to the Antrim was spirited performance in the second half, never give up, dug in, got it back to, 7 or 8. But I don't know if Throne eased up or Cavan can more into it or the change of tactics. But, at this, for an Ulster Championship to be over, a game to be over so early was not like Cavan. Cavan they're a strange outfit at times. You don't just know what you're getting with them. But they're a big side that, can hurt you. Like even last year, they were 9 down against Throne and never give up and get
Yeah.
back in. And that's insane. You just don't know even their league form. They went out and they weren't great against one team, and then next thing they're pulling off not a massive shot, but a so-called shot against someone else. And I think Calvin need to get that wee bit of consistency. They're always between Division Two, Division Three, more so Division Two, obviously, but can they now get to that sort of bracket of you know third, fourth, second, or first in Division Two for the next sort of 3 or 4 years, instead of sort of one year at the bottom and then just hanging on, next year relegated, next year promoted, because I think that has an awful effect on your championship form. But yeah, to me yesterday Throne looked very good. Now I don't know if that was because Cavan was so poor,
I think
but
because we were so bad, CJ.
possibly, yeah. But look, you can only play what's front in you. Say Throne had forwards and McCurry, and
McCurry
obviously,
was class.
yeah, there's other players there. Obviously, Dark Cavan didn't play, maybe when came on or whatever, but Throne Armagh is going to be interesting.
Mm,
Armagh weren't deadly against Antrim. There's always this rivalry there, obviously. But Throne looked a little bit better than where they were at the start of the league.
mm,
Matthew Art's a very smart man, as is Ryan Porter in their training. Their last 2 or 3 league performances probably were very good.
mm.
And I've seen that sort of coming yesterday to a degree that Throne had picked up their performances towards the end of the league. It started to maybe get people in positions that they want to understand the structure, that they want to understand the individual plans of what I need you to do. I was impressed by Throne yesterday, but as you say, it may only been against a Cavan team that were poor on the day. But sometimes teams make you look poor. So there's a lot of questions coming out of that game. I agree with Throne, how poor with Cavan. Did Throne make Cavan look bad? But I just think Cavan were very flat in the first half.
Yeah.
And
And that we paid the price.
paid the price, but it's amazing how I know there's a wind in Ireland most days, but in April, you know, it's nearly like still league football. You look at the Meath game yesterday, Meath were 10 down, and then there was a big freeze in the second half and ended up winning what was 5, you
Yeah.
know. So where that's May or June, you probably don't get that big, massive, 5, 6, 7, 8 point freeze. Where Throne probably had that yesterday in the first half, and it sort of put the game to bed, in my opinion.
I'm not defending us, and God, we were brutal, but there was a fall of rain, and I don't know when the rain came, the Cavan said, right, let's just kind of protect our lead, or no, not even protect our lead, but like protect ourselves and not push ourselves on. Like, but it was just some of the stuff was just very frustrating to watch on from the sideline now. And in terms of just obviously, we all talk about can be about Grow Karen heading into these big games, and he was taken off at half time, and he was playing all right. In fairness, he caught a bit of ball in the middle of the field, probably didn't score as much as he wanted to, but I don't know, was that an injury, was that something tactical? I'm not too sure, like, but it definitely didn't really work in the second half. And I just think we didn't have anyone. My question was going into the game, did we have anyone to punch a hole against Tyrone? Did we have anyone to go at them like last year? And I know obviously Paddy Lynch being injured, and Godspeed with his return, to be honest with you, CJ, at this point, but it was just so flat. I think even the game was very flat. Like even at times, especially in the second half, I think probably when Tyrone at the game won, my God, CJ, I don't know what it was like watching at home, but it was just like challenge match feel at times and really flat. It didn't feel like an ultra championship game. I know the weather wasn't great, but it was just flat. There wasn't even. I think there was only 5,000 or 6,000 at the game. That was 4,000 down from last year, and it was just a kind of a flat day overall, I suppose. Flat performance, flat day.
Yeah, I was actually just going to mention the crowds there before you sort of mentioned that. Crowds are down, so maybe that has an impact on the atmosphere, has an impact on the appetite. Of players going closing people down or whatever. But I think it was flat performance by Cavan in the first half. I think the second half was very flat because Joan just went through the motions. Knew probably job was done, keep the ball for large periods, run the clock down. I just think Cavan even, obviously we don't know what was on inside the change rooms, whether McKernan was injured or he wasn't, but just even for a big man inside, they probably need goals in the second half, even for 2 pointers, which he can kick. Um, I'm not so sure why he was taken off, but
I'd love to know why. I have to find out. Yeah.
for me, you've mentioned a couple of times about Paddy Lynch coming back. But I'd also take that on the flip side, and obviously you know better than me, obviously, and other people around that area probably know better than me. But I would I would just look at the caliber of player that Cavan have right now, and I would wonder, is it as good as it was a number of years ago?
Yeah, I
And
think you're right. Yeah.
some people might say to me, look, we have loads and loads of talent, because again, I don't see Cavan club football, so it's hard for me to comment. But just watching the county team, 6, 7 times a year, I just don't think Cavan have the caliber of player, and why you're probably mentioning Paddy Lynch so often.
Yeah, that's probably that's feeding into that point. It's feeding into that point. Yeah.
You probably don't have a massive amount of squad depth. You probably don't have another 2 or 3 shooters like him. Where if you replace Barry Cameron with Mark Bradley or McCurry or Rory Cameron or Armagh, a great squad depth. If Michael Murphy's not fit, Gallen comes in. If Gallen or Murphy's not fit, Jamie Brennan plays. And you're still punching the holes. You're still getting the scoring threat. Where I'm not so sure Calvin have that, and that again, that's me having limited ability of having club football or Cavan County football. But looking from the outside, I would just worry about where Cavan scores are coming from. The boy,
I,
Ocean, Kieran
Oisin Kieran and Casterham, my old club band here. Yeah,
scored a couple of lovely 2 pointers
he did.
yesterday.
Yeah.
Absolutely has potential and obviously performed fairly well yesterday. But again, who else, where in the old days and going back away where, you had Ling and Johnston and,
Yeah. Martin
those
Dunn,
scored.
Keaton.
And that's going back a bit. There's been another generation, Ian Mackey, boys like that you always count on. But I'm not so sure Calvin, obviously
Half
Lynch,
that.
but at the minute I'm not so sure. Even the manager was a great goalkeeper, kick scores for you. Nowadays I'm just looking at Calvin thinking, how they went down, how fucking standard players that they're bringing in.
Yeah. Yeah, no, true. Like, and I think even like Darren McVitie, to his credit, I don't know how I did mention, but start there, he actually had a fantastic game, and he really led the charge in the second half. And God, just watching on CJ, like I don't know what it was like from home, but I felt sorry for at times. Like he was really having a cut, and he really led the charge, and he kicked some lovely 2 pointers. He was having a cut, and he was pushing us on. He was really trying to drive us on, but it was kind of unfortunate. Like, and I know we had a bit of a go at the end, but as you say, Tyrone probably switched off, whereas we kind of switched on nearly the end. It was probably too little, too late. But Dara was exceptional now to his credit.
I forgot about the city there, Burton again, kicked the cup
Yeah,
and was to the
yeah.
other the corner that come from the soccer.
Sean McAvoy,
Has a little bit of potential there too, but I'd also worry about them again at the other end of the field. I'm not,
defense.
yeah, I'm not so sure. Again, maybe everyone has an off day, an off flat performance or whatever. But defensively, Cavan used to have, real good defenders in there that were tight, that were a wee bit unorthodox at times in
Yeah,
Cavan, but they did a great job. I'm not so sure they have that at the minute either. Um, but Cavan can be a funny team because Cavan could go out and beat someone.
oh
Like,
yeah.
I'm telling you, like, they could catch someone like a Monaghan or even an Armagh or
Mm,
any of them teams.
like,
They
like
could catch, and that's the funny. They're nearly so unorthodox in their style of play. It's mad and it's hard. It's actually hard to set up against them because you just don't know what's coming at times. And yeah, I just think they need that bit of consistency in their game.
yeah, no, correct and right, and like, and you did. I know the league probably doesn't count for a whole pile of times, like, but they can play. Like I seen them against Down, I seen them against Westmeath, I seen them against Roscommon. Like Cavan can play. Like there is players. There's loads of ability there. And in fairness, I was saying to the lad beside me at the game yesterday, like I just got a weird feeling Cavan actually going to take them. But Sage, look, it's the hope that kills you at the very best of times. But I just think there's a mountain of work to do. I think there's a couple of players we need to find. I know Oisin Brady was injured yesterday, the Killygarry marksman. He was obviously a good scoring threat potentially. You had young Dara Lovett as well, but couple of injuries as well. Like, but look, a lot of hard work probably to do. I think Ray will, if Ray is the Cavan manager next year, he'll have to get along to some of the Cavan Club Championship games and really eke out a couple of good players. Obviously, Kershaw Law, James Smith, he was injured yesterday as well. I think that was a bit of a last minute injury. He must have been ruled out, but yeah, look, there's probably a mountain of work to do, and you're obviously heading into the All Ireland series. God knows who you're kind of going to get there. And look, you'd want to improve to have a couple of weeks break now, which is probably good for the players to rest up. But look, it was a tough day at the office. Any work on comments on the game, CJ?
Yeah, look, I think Cavan will upset someone this summer somewhere along the line. Who it is, I don't know. But the Cavan are a bit like the Antrims and the Fermanagh. They need everyone playing for them at this current minute in time. They can't afford injuries, in my opinion, because they don't have massive squad depth.
Yeah,
So them couple of players that you've mentioned, James Smith, good player too. They can't afford to be missing people like that. And again, I'm not so sure who hasn't committed this year. But um, if there's people out there just playing club football, like Cavan need absolutely everyone committed to the cause to
yeah,
pull off upsets. And I'm
yeah.
not sure they'll have that at the minute, but it wouldn't surprise me one bit if they're drawn against a Mayo or something in the and people.
Mm. Yeah, no, as I was saying to kind of fell earlier on, like you kind of stay in a position or you kind of prepare yourself. And obviously, Shawnee Johnson was doing the bit of work for BBC yesterday, and he was basically saying, like, we haven't bet Tyrone since 1980, which is just crazy, crazy stuff. And he was kind of saying, like, has this been said enough to the Cavan players? Like, did they know about this stat? Like, we have not bet these guys in so long. And I was saying earlier on, like, are you nearly content with beating Monaghan now and again? Are you content? I don't want to dig the heel in here, CJ, but are you content with beating Antrim or for man? Like, do you know what? Okay, that's obviously not an insult, but that's probably just the reality of the situation. Like, are you content with it? Like, do you want to just stay dormant? Do you want to stay put, or do you want to propel yourself? Do you want to beat your Tyrones? Do you want to beat your Armaghs? Like, do you want to just, like, with all the investment that kind of goes on, and obviously the backroom teams, you hear so much talk about this, that, and the other. And another thing, like Stevie O'Neill, I think he was up in the stand, and he doesn't kind of come around for the Tyrone games, but I think he wasn't on the field. Like, he is obviously being paid by the Cav County Board. I think you need to be present on the field, need to be kind of getting in players' ears. I know you can't really say or do much on the stand. I think you need to be on the pitch, but there's so much more I could say, CJ, but
That's it. Look, it's frustrating at times when you have so much passion, and look, there's no doubt the players have that passion as well. And you know, and obviously women as well. You know, there'll be no one hurting more today than them. You know, because they probably felt that, you know, put in an awful lot of hard work and it hasn't paid off yesterday. Obviously they'll know they'll probably have let themselves down, they've let, you know, the supporters down, but sometimes, look, getting a lesson like that can, can do good wonders for you. You know, a couple of weeks break and you reset, you get a couple of injuries back, you get that wee bit between the teeth because you don't want to be embarrassed like that again. You know, have an awful effect. And still a lot of football we played this summer, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, look at the couple week break, and I think that could do them the world of good, and the reset, and obviously get back to the club, CJ, and it'd be interesting to see if they get the few minutes into the legs, and obviously use this week maybe just to maybe go out and enjoy themselves, maybe, and let the hair down, and maybe just kind of relax and take it off, and then get back to the clubs maybe in the next week or two, because it is a bit of a break until the All Ireland series, of course. But look at Tyrone's day yesterday in Healy Park, and probably very much expected, but I definitely expected a lot more from them, Cavan lads, and then we'll move on to the Leinster Senior Championship action over the weekend. CJ, briefly, it was Louth against Laois in Cedral St. Connick's Park. It was Louth 2-16, Laois 17 points. Good win for Louth. Ger Brennan was happy enough after, CJ.
Yeah, I think Jared's improved Louth big time. Very, very smart player in his day. Came in that sort of sweeping role for Dublin. You know, can see a lot of things. So obviously brought that quality as coaching and managing. Obviously does a lot of work on UCP, so we see a lot of caliber of players from different counties coming in too. But you know, they've had a lot of joy. And going back just briefly to the chat we had about Cavan, they're the team that sort of they want to probably get the allowed because Louth a couple of years ago were Division 4, Division 3, and now they're nearly at that steady mark where you know what you're getting from them. You know, they know that they're in the top 10 in Ireland, top 12 at the bare minimum, and they've been there steady for the last couple of years now. Um, and they're nearly grinding out, not saying they're grinding out results, but when you were looking at that match yesterday, probably 2 years ago, you were going, don't know what's going to happen. Yesterday, I was very confident that they would beat Leeds, and that's the sort of where I have went in the last couple of years, where they're nearly that seasonal outfit now, where they know what they're doing, they know what the structure is, they know how to beat teams, they know what way system they're playing. Obviously, there's been a couple of tweaks to it, you know, through leagues or obviously you tweak systems and tactics depending on who you're playing. But I was under no illusions that Louth would win yesterday. That wasn't really the case a couple of years ago. So there's a maturity about Louth now. There's maybe an expectation in Louth that you know they are a top 10 team now. But again, what I was saying about Antrim earlier in the Thompson, Louth got their Leinster playing maybe two in a row, and that's given them a wee bit of a springboard. It's also given them learning to play the big teams. And now when they go down to play the sort of leases who at this minute in time are weaker, they're ready for it. They're professional about it to get the job done. And, you know, they play a decent fan football. Obviously, like every team that, you know, Sam Malloy, you know, the big players, you know. But I think a lot of the game will cause an upset for someone. I think the GA system as well of that group of four. I know they took an awful hammer from Kerry and Port Leeds the first year, but they've learned from that. They came back and they were very competitive in all the games last year again. And for the first time in the quarterfinals like last year. You know, so Louth are on the up. How far they can progress, I'm not sure, because such a small county is strong. Well, that would probably be an issue there too. But they're getting the best out of themselves. And Joe Brand's obviously doing a fabulous job there.
Yeah, he absolutely is. And Louth, good win for Louth yesterday. It'll be absolutely delighted with that. And then we had Meath against Offaly yesterday in Park Talton and Navan. It was Meath 125, Offaly 21 points. Very good win for Meath here, Siege, it has to be said. Obviously, Robbie Brennan absolutely delighted after, and obviously the management duo of Declan Kelly and Mickey Hart doing the interview after the game. They were obviously very disappointed, but good win for Meath. Obviously, some big fellas, and was it Matthew Costello had a game of games. He was absolutely terrific at the weekend, and onwards and upwards for Meath, and a game against the Dubs the next day out.
Yeah, they all relish that. You know, it's an derby as always, but yeah, that's what football's changed. They were looking at the game yesterday and Offaly were 10 in front of half time. You're like, that's game over no matter who you're playing. Obviously, the 2 pointers. Costello was very good in the first half, picked a couple of points in the first half just to keep them tagging along. I know they only maybe scored 5 in the first half or whatever, but he was maybe a source for 2 against the wind, and then he really came into the second half over by the stands there. He picked a couple of lovely 2 pointers. I thought Offaly probably should have pushed out a little bit more. And I know there's that danger of conceding a goal and leaving it in, but when teams are kicking 2 or 3 2 pointers with a serious breeze, I think you have to squeeze out a little bit better. But Offaly will learn from that. Offaly are on an upward trajectory this year. It would have been interesting to see Louth against me yesterday because, as I say, I think Louth are further along the road than Offaly. And I've Offaly had another couple of years' experience. I know the young Cormac Egan who played there yesterday, they're only maybe starting a good journey. But that was the same game in 2 years' time. I would love to see how Offaly handle it. But Meath will learn from it too. I don't think that Offaly can afford to have a first half like they did against Offaly against Dublin, because the Dubs will rip them straight. But it's important to at least get them right.
Yeah.
So there's atmosphere at that, and Meath are a big team. I think the new rules suits them in terms of kick. So I think the Dubs will still beat them, but Meath are a bit like Cavan and other teams are. You just don't know fully what to get with.
What did you make of obviously Marty Curry and Joe McMahon leaving the Meath setup? And I have to commend Robbie Brennan after the game. And Tommy Rooney, I must send you the interview. Tommy was poking, and Robbie Brennan did not give him anything. Two of the best coaches in Ireland, CJ, and when Meath were in such an upward trajectory, as you were saying, it's disappointing.
Yeah, look, probably not for me to comment. But obviously I don't know what went on. Say everyone's in football circles where you're getting forwarded messages from, and once you know it's forward, it's probably lies. So honestly,
CJ, WhatsApp rumors are fake. What?
honestly, I don't know what happened.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But there was rumors of him going to Kilcoo. Whether that comes about, I don't know. Any Tom, Dick, or Harry could have said that, and then someone took it as gospel and then started spreading it. Who knows? But look, sometimes as a coach, it's traveling. I know Joe has children. I'm not sure if Martin. I don't know Martin's background at all, but it could be traveling, it could be family commitments. You know, anything could be happening within their personal lives in terms of
100%, yeah.
you know, anything at all. Like parents could be sick or who knows.
Of course,
So
yeah.
it's sparing anyone to sort of comment on it unless the two boys come out and say why they left. Maybe they just weren't enjoying it. And sometimes when you're not enjoying things, like it's better to step away for both parties.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
I don't know if there was a bit of friction or they thought that there should be a different state of play or tactics. Who knows? Who will ever know apart from them?
Yeah.
But no, look, it wasn't good for me in terms of the number of weeks before the championship. That these men were walking away for whatever reason. But they've regrouped, they've regathered, they've another 2 weeks to try and get themselves right for the job. But I could take him in now, who's, I just don't know the answer to the house. But it's a big concern for me. Moving forward, maybe they've already got a fix and got people in to help. I don't know, but losing 2 men on that quality is never good.
Absolutely, CJ. Well said. Very well said, as per usual. And then the other action over the weekend in the Leinster Senior Football Championship, it was Wicklow 18 points, Dublin 221 in Auckland. Obviously, Jesus, in fairness, a very, very good performance by Wicklow, has to be said. They put up a serious score against, well, look, we all know we're Dublin in the Leinster Championship, CJ. The less said, the better. But Oisin McConville, in fairness, it was the happiest I've seen him after a game.
Yeah, Martin's done a great job there, and he's working with probably a limited bunch of players in terms of, score backs again. I know if you come back to, people not banning probably because they know that they're drawn Dublin in the championship and actually met Archie on the way up from, we're actually playing Wicklow from our ladies this year, and I met him at the Apple Green. He said he was enjoying it and they were doing right. Like, I think there'd be something wrong for that day or something in the league. But look, there's no doubt, he's been about it. He's experienced and what he's doing. He knows the game inside out. He probably knows in hearts of hearts he's going there yesterday to try and get a performance, number one, out of the players, and number two, try and make it look respectable. And I think he did both brilliantly. They played really well. There was faith in them. The dubs were full out as well. So let's not, think that a lot of the players were rested. That a lot of very, very good players on the field. And I think for me, that was the result of the weekend. Even though,
all things considered, yeah.
Yeah, this is strange one to say, what do you mean they were beat by 9 points? That was the result of the weekend. A bit like the Antrim, I expected Wicklow probably 12, 13 points would have been really, really probably the best they could do. And to get it to 9 points is an outstanding achievement, considering they're playing Division 4, the Dubs were in Division 1. That's an outstanding achievement, and fair play to the players, fair play to the management team. But again, is that their season, or do they want to go and try and build on that from the top? Because that would always be my focus. The one match can define the summer. It's a bit like
One
Cavan,
swallow doesn't, yeah.
a bit like Cavan. Okay, they were clear yesterday there off the jump. There has to be a kick on somewhere, and for Wicklow, hopefully, for them, the players or I don't think that locked on so much. That's Dublin the name. I think it could happen here in the Calvin. We go and try and make a semi final and see what happens. We go and
Yeah.
The more games them players get, the more experience they get, the more belief they have in themselves for next year, whether it's for the league campaign or the next Calvin or the next, all Ireland qualifiers, whatever it happens to be. But as a group, they're always looking to try and maximise the most games they can per season to look for that improvement.
Yeah, no, well done, Dusty McConnell and the lads. Obviously, very good. Obviously, they got best, but it was probably the best they could really hope for. It has to be said over the weekend. And then the last game over the weekend, CJ, it was the Leinster Senior Football Championship quarter final between Kildare and Westmeath. It was Kildare 2-17, Westmeath 21 points in St. Conleth's Park in Kildare. Jesus, I have to say, Westmeath are probably the most unlucky team this year, CJ, without a shadow of a doubt. Derek McCabe could not buy a win for love of money this year, and obviously Kildare were delighted. Brian Flanagan was thrilled after the game, and John Heslin obviously doing the punditry for GA Plus at the weekend, and Penny for his touch throughout that game. But I was so impressed by Luke Loughlin. He was absolutely incredible throughout this game. Nothing was an issue to him. His movement, his scoring ability, accuracy was just top class, but wasn't enough, and Kildare got the job done.
Yeah, I watched it for Saturday night. I thoroughly enjoyed it. The game of football. Looked like it was probably unmarkable first half. Predominantly left footed playing one thing on the right, throwing it over. It was unmarkable the amount of touches he got in the first half. It was brilliant. Joy to watch. Absolute joy to watch. So there came in the second half. Probably Westmeath could have been a wee bit further ahead half time. But it was a good open game of football. It was enjoyable to watch two teams just going thing dust out of it. It was probably one of the games at the weekend that was probably you didn't really know what was going to happen in terms of they were coming off the back of the feet in the league thing, and Westmeath, as you say, was just unlucky throughout the year. But those are probably John hasn't been the pundits. They would have loved to have him for a half or probably could have swung that game for you. Dermot gave done a fantastic job. I don't care what anyone says. I know if they're relegated, if they're beaten, whatever, every match or whatever. But it's been so competitive. The amount of players he lost this year, I think Dermot has to take a lot of credit. So many unlucky defeats. Now the beauty of it is you just need to find a way to get over the line because the last couple of years have been very good. But obviously, John has and O'Toole, boys like that. You can't afford to be missing, brilliant forward. And I can only think if Haslam was playing on Saturday night, it may have been a different story. But credit to there, come back second half, there's a lot of handy footballers as well. Look, they'll, they'll give that semi-final a right crack, and um, you know, who knows what way Manchester's going. I don't know where the Dubs are at. I thought they were in a really good position early in the year, but yesterday may, an open to the emotions possibly. But if there's any year that may be fifth, it may be this year.
And I think it's as simple as this, CJ. If John Heslin was about for Westmeath this year, I think to stay up in the league, and they probably would have bickled there at the weekend.
Yeah, I would probably agree with that. And, I'm not sure what age John is or whatever, or what his reasons for walking away was this year. Everyone has reasons to say they're there. Don't know what you take the thing because we're looking at it from a distance. But debating next on football, he showed that over the last couple of years. The elite level where they went up the Armagh one day, give Armagh all they wanted. He was superb that day. Brilliant score getter, brilliant skill set. I think they would have stayed up, and I think they would have still there again.
Yeah. Simple as plain as that, CJ. But look at who are we to say, as the old saying goes. And briefly moving on to this weekend's action, CJ, in the Munster Senior Football Championship semi-final time this weekend. You have the old rivalry of Cork against Kerry in Super Value Park Equive at 6 p.m. And of course, the game will be live on GAA Plus. CJ, their old rivals go at it again. Not the game it was years ago, but you really have to be thinking Kerry again.
Simple as that. Yeah, I think Kerry going right. They started the league slowly. Okay, they could have got relegated. But I think a bit like Tone, their last three performances in the league were very good. They're playing the long game, obviously. The only thing I will worry about Kerry is the squad depth. Not so sure I'd say the first 20 will be anyone else that's really, really going to push people. Again, people might say actually only 20, which obviously possibly when I get the game they do. But I just think if one person gets injured or somebody that needs the team, one person that needs the team. And when you look at it over the last couple of years, Kerry went the extra time in a few games in the championship. Clifford's had to come off and the squad depth.
Yeah.
So I'm not looking at for this weekend. I'm looking at the championship stretch with Kerry will be in all nine quarterfinals, semi-finals. As the game goes to extra time, we can get one or two injuries. I'm not so sure about the squad depth. I think that probably best, probably 2 or 3 of the best 5 players. But, I still hope they win the Ireland because I'm a massive Kerry fan. Look, this weekend I would expect them to win 8 to 10 points. It could be more. It just depends how hard Kerry want to go at it.
Yeah, I suppose that old age thing of Cavan not beating Tyrone, it's a real Cork not beating Kerry thing. I know obviously they bet them in Cover, but of course there was a lot of luck about that in that particular night. And then the other action in the Munster Senior Football Championship, it's Clare against Tipperary in Cusack Park, Ennis at 2 p.m. Obviously, I think Clare would be severe favourites going into this, Mr. McGurty. But again, though they've a Munster final appearance potentially against Kerry, so I don't know, Robin Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah, look, Clare win that. I think anyway, but again, Tipperary is slightly backwards. Obviously being losing key players over the couple of years. We'll have some decent forwards back in the day when I was playing. It's been living from Sweeney and boys like that, causing upsetting one day against for a couple of years back. The decent players just like went away from that. And players and down from sort of last year, changed over management. But I would say, I don't know by how many, but I would say with just how enough for Tipperary.
Absolutely. And then in the other games over the weekend, in the Ulster Senior Football Championship quarter-final, you Fermanagh against Down in Brewster Park at 4 p.m. And of course, game will be live on the BBC.
No comment.
You're contractually obliged to not give any comment.
Yeah, obviously, like Conor McGovern, there work does a bit of work for us in the video system with me as well. So yeah, that's good. It's not sitting on the fence. It'll be an interesting one for Manor. Manor have produced some big performances over the past, number of years now. Come back, you know, obviously the Rory Gallagher days and Peter Cannon's days, but I don't know, down or funnier, etc.
Weird game. Weird game.
Weird game. I think Cavan, a bit like Cavan, I don't know if down the best players in down are actually playing for down. It's some talent obviously, or Murdoch and Pat Havens getting in big scores and stuff, but they're fragile at the back too. Um, their league form wasn't deadly. Theirs was Fermanagh, you know, Fermanagh a couple of decent results. It's a difficult one to call, to be honest with you. I think probably Owen Murdoch makes 20th for down.
He's a quality footballer.
Yeah, but if there is a so-called upset, I think this could be the match to look at this weekend. I don't see Cork in Kerry. I don't see Mountain Big. See it where from Malapan at home they can get a decent start. It could be an interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if it took extra time.
Yeah.
But as I say, if Fermanagh are going to win, they're going to need to stop on without something, and they're going to need to limit the freeze on Pat Haven. But I'm sure Kieran knows that. I'm sure the Fermanagh, the Fermanagh backroom team know that. Fermanagh were away in Portugal last week. So we're preparing for it very, very professionally. And as I say, if there is an upset this weekend, I think Fermanagh will be focused.
That could be the very game. That could be the very game. And then we'll move on to the other game on Saturday in the Connacht Senior Football Championship semi-final. It's Leitrim against Mayo in Carrick-on-Shannon at 4:30. And of course, the game will be live on GA Plus, Mr. McGarty. Oh God, this could be scary for Leitrim.
Don't know. Football's hard to tell.
Jesus, CJ, you're the internal optimist.
I'm going on the thing, but I do understand where you're coming from. It could turn out that way. Because like people probably said that about Sligo playing Leitrim, or sorry, Sligo playing Mayo. People could have said that against Wicklow and Antrim this weekend, but Wicklow playing Dublin, Antrim playing Armagh. They both held into a reasonable scoreline. I would still think there would be 10 plus in it, yeah. They could get out to 20, who knows. Again, I don't know the outs around Leitrim, who's playing for them, who's not playing for them, what's set up. But I can only look from the outside, and what's happened this year hasn't been very good so far in terms of not turning up big games. There's obviously that, taxpayer from out saying they offer to play it. Things can't be going brilliantly, morale can't be going brilliantly. I don't even know where the match is.
Carrick-on-Shannon this weekend, yeah.
Back open the game. Carrick-on-Shannon can be a windy venue as well. Happening a couple of things. It's a windy venue. But yeah, depending on how hard they want to go out, and if they really want to go for the choker hole, if you want to call it that, it could end up landing. But them teams sort of 10 points, sort of slack off and not take the ball and make changes and get a wee bit disjointed. But if Mayo want to win like 15 this weekend, and the best team of the league, I think it.
Yeah, I think if you're just the Leitrim players management, you just want the season to end as soon as possible. Like, I think the league was a complete disaster. That could be a complete disaster Saturday, and the Taunton Cup could be literally ending. So I think if you're Stevie Poacher and his players and management, I think this season just needs to end. I think for all things considered, CJ, because it's just been a disaster. Yep.
hard position to be in, yeah, definitely things haven't went well. A lot of players walking away. Wonder, is that why Mickey Graham walked away? That was the talk that he was told a lot of players were coming back. He went and spoke to them. They weren't coming back. So if they weren't going to be committed, why was he going to be committed? That was the talk. Again, I don't know if that's true or it's not true. But you know, if that's the case, then you have to look at some players as well and say, well, why were they walking away? Again, everyone may have valid reasons. I don't know. No one, no one has an obligation to play county football. Yeah, you want to, you don't, but it doesn't go well with me. It's maybe 7, 8, or 9 players walked away in the same year. So is there something else?
Yeah,
Is there something else going on in the background that maybe you don't know about with playing board or
but
you know, you,
yeah,
you know? But look, definitely things aren't going well this weekend for Lakeland and the Hamilton. So it can be, there's been a lot of talk in the media about that decision not to play a game from the manager, from ex-players, it's just not a good situation to be in for absolutely anyone. Um, but for, having played in the Big Four and having played against Leitrim a number of times, I hope for their sake this week they can put up a fight against Mayo. It's not good for our games when there's 20s all over the place.
yeah.
Great this weekend with going on from actually, real put in good real performances that they can be proud of and hopefully they can do soon.
Mm, yeah. Oh, here's hoping, but I think it could be a potential cricket score at the weekend, Mr. McGurty. And then the other action this weekend on Sunday, you have the Connacht Senior Football Championship semi-final. It was Common against Galway in Dr. Hyde Park at 4 p.m. And of course, the game will be live on RTE.
But this is another one that I think Galway will get over the line, but again, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a shot.
Yeah.
Only how far they set the judge. They're consistent. They're always there, thereabouts. They're decent forwards, they're decent players. Around the fringes, both cornerbacks, stuff like that. I'm not so sure up to that sort of, top of standard, but I expect Galway probably just to get over the line. It's Dr. Hay Park.
Oh, sorry, where is it? Let me see. It is in Dr. Hyde Park in Roscommon.
Very, very windy, very open, conditions, don't know the weather for the weekend, but, that will be a tricky one for Galway, but it will show where Galway are exactly after they come out of the hay on Sunday with a 2-0.
Mm.
The next step is, after Connacht time, and, they're not far away from the Ireland as the team last year, but this could potentially, you know, stop their tracks for, obviously for Connacht, but also step them back a wee bit in terms of going for an All-Ireland. So I think it's an important day for Galway on Sunday. Going to the hay, tough place to go. Can they get out of there with a win? I'm sure Patrick Joyce would take a win in extra time to get through. Because he know more than I guess yeah, probably just go away by, depending on where the next.
Mm. Yeah, the slimmest of margins, I would be thinking. Then last game of the weekend, or last game of the weekend, CJ, it's in the Ulster Senior Football Championship quarterfinal. It's Monaghan against Donegal in Clones at 2 p.m. And of course, game will be live on GEA Plus and the BBC, Mr. McGurty. A very interesting game, this one. Monaghan had an incredible league campaign. Donegal had an up and down sort of league campaign. I think Monaghan are going to give them loads of it.
No, don't see it. I think Donegal are going to. Um, I see what you're saying about Mons slightly. The only concern with them would be, the played in Division 2 the whole day. Donegal played in Division 1. It's still a step up. Obviously, Mons is going to, coming off the bench. I've been impressed by Mons, don't get me wrong. But I just think Donegal are completely different animal from what Mons have played this year.
Okay.
So far, there's European knowledge, no, don't. But I think Donegal will win with a small bit. think they will win like 4 or 5 points and possibly more. But I've been wrong before.
I still think Donegal will win, but I just feel Monaghan will put in a very good performance.
I think definitely Monaghan. Look, it wouldn't. I say it wouldn't surprise me if someone told me tomorrow morning Monaghan beat them. It wouldn't surprise me. But you see it this weekend. I just think if
Donegal are
Monaghan,
primed.
yeah, if Monaghan had played Armagh zone before this, and could get up to that sort of Division One level and beat one of them teams going into play Donegal. But I think just Donegal that step above them at the minute. I think their squad depth's incredible. I think McKenna's back to him. They're not going to, for tactics, they'll not be short on, having the tactics sorted. I would love to see an Ulster game between Donegal and Armagh to see the game where they're at. But I would say they're my two teams that for the All Ireland, along with Galway, Dublin. But if any team picks up injuries, the best teams to cope with them are Donegal and Armagh. Very chance Dublin have lost the pick in terms of defence, and with Cavan and Galway, okay, they've got a score back there, but it's a later Conroy or Walsh, Homer, even Johnny Maha's there, injured in that big struggle. So to me, Donegal now,
Best placed.
the Philly team had a couple of players injured, they would be the best for the team to, to bring in players of the same standard. But yeah, I just think Donegal. I don't know if they'll win the Ireland, but they'll not be far away.
Yeah. I think Michael Murphy and Jim McGuinness didn't come back for the sake of it, so I think they'll be thereabouts, and obviously a very good performance considering the last day out. But I just think this weekend, I think Monaghan will continue the league form. I think they will play well, but I just think coming down the stretch, I think Donegal will just potentially have too much for the Farney Army.
No, it's a good game. Like I think it'll be open, it'll be
Yeah.
Pace. I can see it being high scoring, but say Monaghan aren't a bad outfit by any means. And the good forwards, Stephen O'Hanlon's moving well at the minute.
Flanagan.
And yeah, I just feel that, I'll be begging and 3 pointers from frees can be big too. Like
there you go, yeah.
So, so you just wouldn't know. They'll not be far away, but I just think Dundalk that they're praying for this year. I think there's a sort of 2-year window now, this year and next year, to try and win an Ireland or,
Shit or bust.
Yeah, shit or bust for 2 years. And I think they'll want to find the honest thing, keep them going.
Yeah, and I want to see Paddy McBurdy having a big game this weekend. He done very well against Derry, but I just want to see him kick these scores, get on the end of, I suppose, passes, and really, play the Paddy fold, I suppose, CJ.
Yeah, McBurdy's not that player. He's obviously got that bit older. He's had a lot of injuries. But again, in the podcast about himself, like he's played a lot of games. Played a lot of games from a young age. Even when he's playing for under 16, Donegal, he's playing for the main. He played for the main as the seniors in the same day. When he's playing for the far under 14, he's playing for our far under 16. And, I'm sure he played for a starter and he's younger, he has been injury prone just because size of the sake of played against him. Murphy was playing that day too, so yeah, I would love to see him. I would love to see him get back to the old form. Well, he can do that or not, I'm not so sure because of the age, but the talent is still there. I would love to just see him a couple of big performances here and not push anything, or fence anything. But because he's a player that's probably been under the radar a wee bit because of the injuries and instead of a wee bit of football, and obviously Murphy and stuff like that, he's been under the radar, but he's tough out.
Yeah, for Donegal for 14 years, CJ. So let that sink in. I remember his debut against Cavan. He scored a goal. I think the guy, I think it was Dano Dow was on him, and I think Paddy scored a goal within a couple of minutes. We knew he was going to be class act from minute one. It's just a sensational credit to the GA and Donegal is Paddy McBurdy, CJ. I suppose to wrap up, CJ, looking ahead to this weekend, who will be your players or player to watch this weekend and bet of the weekend?
Yeah. McBrearty. I'd love to see McBrearty and Murphy inside to see what we can do against him. So I'll go for them two in Ulster. Um, and I'll keep an eye on Damien Comer.
Mm.
Galway. I would like to see where he's at. Obviously, come back from injury whether he starts this weekend or not. But if Galway are going in the Ireland League, Damien Comer's flying. So I'd like to see where he's at. And obviously, in the last one, I'll go for four. It's Owen Murdoch because I think
Yeah.
that will make him his performance will have an awful burn on the week come up there. So they're my four. And go for a surprise victory for Fermanagh by 2 points.
Oh, because you have to. you're,
So
you're,
I'll have less to listen to when I go down to training on Wednesday night. I'll not be getting any. Yep.
yeah, as I said earlier on, you're contractually obliged to say it for Mana.
No,
I know, I'm joking. I'm joking.
I do genuinely believe that the chance. I think I'm not sure it will be classified as a massive shock. I think the two,
Yeah,
we're on between 2 and 3 at the minute.
yeah,
But I think probably have better players. But
yeah.
home with Banty and possibly a better system could maybe change them out.
Yeah, it's funny. I seen Sean Quigley. I think he's coaching the Fermanagh Minors, and I think he'd love these new rules. And I think if he got that girl back to play the inter, I don't know. I don't know what his relationship is like with Kieran Donnelly, whatever. Like, but Jesus, a penny for his thoughts with these news with Fermanagh at the minute.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was him or Sean or Shimmy was going for fun there the other week. In a club game, I think one was doing that, the 4-1-5.
Stop.
So there's still obviously the talent and the ability. So yeah, what
Yeah,
I'm coaching with Fermanagh Minors. So
yeah.
um, yeah, pick them up. I think against Ballinalack, the played nearly.
Say
The
again,
challenge.
CJ. Sorry, what you say?
I think they were actually playing Ballinalack in a challenge
Okay,
game. They were
okay,
before.
okay. Yeah,
But when you've gained Connor, that's why it helps me. Used to play with Fermanagh cornerback, trying to mark him. It wouldn't help you. So I know that's why he scored 1-5.
yeah. Yeah, I just think I don't know these new rules. I think Sean would really suit them, and it's good to see him in with the Fermanagh Minors. Like, no doubt he's getting on well with them too.
Yeah, look, he's a top class player. Great football and brave as well. And he takes a lot of good scores. So look, Fermanagh and often underage results haven't been very good in the last number of years. So, you probably need good coaches in there to try and help the situation and try and mould at least 3 or 4 players to get through the senior.
Yeah.
And good to see that sort of ex players giving stuff back. Aidan Breen's
Mm.
another one who's in helping Fermanagh Minors this
Aiden
year.
Breen, yeah, seen him, yeah.
Aidan Breen's been helping another very, very good player for Fermanagh throughout the years. And, it's good to see him in helping the Minors and obviously offering his advice and his knowledge of the game would be very good. He's a very good player on the ball. So I
Yeah.
know he's playing a wee bit for tempo and stuff, but you need these players, ex players coming in. I'm not saying everyone, all ex players, coaches, but by you know,
Mm.
definitely some on main, some on 16, some on the same way on them. They need some serious help in there. In terms of coaches. Them two coming this year along with I think Cavan with the Mayors can only be seen as a positive.
Mm. Is this something you'd like to do? Maybe give the Antrim lads a dig out in the future?
Look, you just never know where your next job is, or where your next role is. I'm enjoying this from on ladies journey at the minute. There's a crowd to work with, brilliant management team as I say. Uh, you know, I wouldn't want to leave anything soon either, because you've got something like that going. You like to be loyal and stick to the process. That continue that upward trajectory that we're on at the minute. From, this year to Division 3. So, we'll have an uphill task in the intermediate. intermediate, but they're two good players, and I think they definitely can compete with intermediate, but the cricket is in the bidding over the next couple of months, but something to look forward to. That's the main thing. Go home, we're going to enjoy it. Enjoy trying to make players better, and as I say, you just don't know what'll happen next year. You might be there for the next 3 years, you might be there for the next 10. That's football. You just don't know.
Yeah.
Something else might come up, or at home here, you just don't know what happens. Something might come up closer to home, or your child starts playing football or stuff like that, and you have to go to their games. So the responsibility there. You just enjoy it while it lasts at the minute, and as I say, our focus for tomorrow.
Okay, I think I've lost CJ. Connection must have dropped. Well, thanks a million to former Antrim and St. Gall's footballer CJ McGurty for joining me this week. It was an absolutely excellent chat, and it was good to see CJ again. And of course, this podcast was kindly brought to you by orgarech.com. Use my promo code JMAC to get 15% off on their website. Enjoy the listen, guys. Thanks for all the support. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe on our Patreon page. It's absolutely free, and the support is absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much, guys. Have a great week.